Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. We're doing part two of our favorite couples, and we're having a discussion that I said we should just go ahead and push record about. So, what are we arguing about, gentlemen?
Yeah. Was it an argument or is it a question?
Chad, I'm gonna
here's the question
throat.
I had. Now that's that's not an argument. That's a statement.
It's just fucking aggression.
Yeah.
Which it's an aggressive statement.
It's
it's an aggressive statement. Now, what I said was, I have not gotten
goddamn knife.
I have not gotten my sleep over the last 36 hours, and I honestly, before we got ready to record, I pulled up my notebook, took notes in, and I had written down lists of couples I thought about.
Yeah, not about the show though, just about the couples you think.
Yeah. I think Paul in accounting may have something going with Sally in human resource. Anyway,
fucking.
But anyway, and I was trying to remember which ones I talked about because, of course, like an idiot, I made a huge list and I picked ones at random to talk about last week.
Me too.
But I didn't mark which ones I did. So I was thinking, and I was going to run this by you to see if these are the ones you think I did, because I think these are the ones I did. I did Adam and Barbara.
Maitland, and by the way, before James goes on with his list, the funny part about this is before we recorded, I was going to go, James, what were your picks? Because one of your picks inspired my first pick, so I could introduce it and go, hey, this isn't, and give you credit for it, but you don't remember your picks.
No, I think I've got. I think so.
And none of us listen to our episodes to know what's going on.
Dude, I can't take the sound of my own voice.
We appreciate our audience the same way that we appreciate. Well, I'll speak for I don't want to include them both, and this is about to be really dirty. I appreciate the audience the same way I appreciate people who can perform fellatio. I've never done it. I don't want to listen to Bonehead, but I appreciate both of those parties. It's even better if they listen and can do the thing I was talking about.
With that being said,
you picked the Maitlands. There was a TV couple you picked.
Naja and Laszlo from What We Do in the Shadows.
Thank you.
And then I did Millie Brown and Layla from Buffalo 66.
Yeah. Two of those were good.
Good.
I kind of agree with Chad on this one, even though I'm going to stab him.
Two of those picks were good.
I know you hate Naja and Laszlo. I don't know why you hate Matt Berry. He's an international treasure.
Natasha and Laszlo, actually, that was the one that inspired my first pick.
Well, why don't you be first then, Chad, since you've done all this setup and taken up so much time?
I told you just won't let me stab him.
So yeah, it was.
We need a third person because if Chad leaves, I'll be the least loved.
He's not fat, but I was going to scream something someone used to say to me. I'm going to let the air out of you, fat boy. I don't know why. I just think it's funny. Chad.
Yeah. So James is, when I had my list last week, this one wasn't even on it, but then James mentioned What We Do in the Shadows. And I realized I didn't have any TV couples, and I've got to do the one that first popped in my head because I think this is a quintessential great couple simply because they are perfect for each other in the fact that they are the most debaucherous couple that you'll ever meet. Talking about the McMurrays from Letterkenny.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
If ever two people were meant for each other, it was the McMurrays.
Well, and if we've learned anything else about the McMurrays, they don't only believe they're meant for each other.
No, they're meant for others as well. And as they have a very open relationship.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it, but these are two people.
Why are you judging me?
All they want to do is get drunk.
Joe, an open relationship doesn't mean that you're open. It requires other people to come through the door.
Well, why in the hell didn't someone tell me that? I've been hanging pineapples out here like a motherfucker.
We thought you just set up a fruit stand and were worried about your mental health.
Someone told me. I didn't even know. Did you all know that pineapples are the sign for swingers?
Yes. We went over this.
No. Well, I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we went over this. Yeah.
Here's the question, Chad. Why do you know?
We went over this on Bonehead?
Yeah, I don't remember when we went over this, but we had this conversation.
During Bonehead?
No, I don't think it was during Bonehead. I think it was an outward conversation. But yeah, I've known for years simply because I listen to podcasts and that's one of those trivia bits that stuck in my head where people were having a conversation.
And we'll get back to your
Podcasts are
movie
for
in a
the
second.
devil.
Because
Well-
like supposedly this one of the like that you can go on cruises and you can go past people's doors, and if they have a picture of a pineapple, you know they're ready to go.
So
Oh my God!
There-
What if it's a Disney cruise, but it's a Mickey pineapple? Does that mean
Yeah.
the same thing?
I think
love
it does.
pineapple. What if it's a Dole Whip? What does that mean?
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
means
I'm
that-
so into Dole Whips,
And
Chad.
you, like when
I
I go
bring
to
him a
my
knife.
when I go visit my niece, like
She has
she
a
lives at-
pineapple outside.
no, she there are several houses that are for the very rich people, and they're older and they have long driveways, but at the end of the driveway are these stone pillars, and more than one have pineapples on the front. And I'm like, is that what I think it means?
So can we real quick? I have a friend, and I sometimes use his pool, and there's pineapples, and it's been brought to my attention now a couple of times by Christy, and I have now started dropping just jokes and hints in conversation, because in my heart I think he just likes, or his wife just likes pineapples, because I actually, for any of you all don't know, my favorite fruit is pineapple. So I do love, and it wouldn't, and if I had a pool, I'd hang a pineapple outside. I would just like, I like pineapple. It's blah, 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 blah. It would not occur to me about swinging. Well,
Yeah.
now, but
pineapples also, and the thing is, these houses are really older, and pineapple, the symbol of a pineapple used to be a symbol of wealth.
right.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get it.
Yeah.
It costs so much money.
There were people who literally made their living off renting pineapples to the rich so they could put it at a centerpiece at a table, and then they'd have to return it the next day. So yeah, it's way back when.
Well, now, and by the way, though,
that was in the 80s,
going
right?
back to this entire symbolism,
Like the 1780s.
The 80s.
going back to
man.
this entire symbolism of the pineapple, though, and what it's come to mean now, the real question we all need to be asking ourselves is, how big of a swinger
Yeah.
is SpongeBob that he actually lives in a pineapple?
Under the sea, which is wet and there's water. There's a lot of symbolism there.
I mean, that is one swinging sponge.
And
I
how
am
did the
never gonna be-
pineapple become the symbol? I mean, is it involved in the play? Because either way, that's going to hurt.
And we're going to get back to Chad in a second, but real quick, Tom Kenny is going to be at Huntington Comic-Con, and I'll be there moderating the panels in 2 weeks. Hopefully, good Lord will, and the creek don't rise. And I should ask him, but I can't ask him on the panel. I think I'm going to ask him I got to work it in. We're not friendly. I've met
Right.
him, but we're not friendly. But if I can just in the green room and he has a conversation, gentlemen, I want pointers on how. So
Yeah, bring that
Think about this-
conversation up when he's talking to the kids.
yeah, right, which he's great at. He's
Yes.
fantastic with fans. By no means, somebody's got to have brought that up before to him. Someone's had to have done it.
Yeah.
Can't be the first. Chad, you're talking about.
No,
your
yeah,
company,
I'm just talking about the McMurray. So
and
yeah,
they're
they
swingers.
they are swingers. They are the most redneck debaucherous couple you could think of.
But there's not one attractive thing about him.
No, not
I know I'm straight, but there's guys I can see who was like, oh, I understand why people want to sleep with George Clooney, or someone wants to, oh, who's another one? Who else do it? John Hamm. I get it. But the guy that plays, and I understand it's a performance, but she's better looking than him, right?
Yes. Yeah, big time.
Okay.
And he only has a 5.15 inch penis.
How dare that motherfucker have 4 more inches than me?
I think it was technically. I might be misquoting that. It was like 4 something inches, and it used to be small, but now it got moved up to his penis was the average size now.
That's awesome.
And so he was happy that he was just average and not small.
I
no.
don't remember that episode, but yeah,
it was when the Hicks had their cable access show, and he just walked into the middle of the recording and yelled 4.15 inches.
Which, by the way, though, it's really funny because there's an entire McMurray dynamic, right? Because they are most of the Letterkenny denizens view them as people. But at the same time, you've got his younger sister, Bonnie McMurray.
Murray, who everybody lusts after.
who everybody lusts after. So it's a really interesting dynamic.
Well, and it was like, one of the episodes is, it's the two. I'll move on after this, but the two that bring it to mind is the yard sale Saturday episode, because they're all going to the yard sales and everybody's very jealous of the McMurrays because they have quite the spread. Everybody had expected them to have 3 banquet tables and a card table on each end, but they in fact had 5 banquet tables with a card table on each end. And they were it was just them two sitting on their porch, getting more and more intoxicated throughout the episode, just talk about them being the glamorous people in Letterkenny because they have the biggest spread for a yard sale. And then also, James, I put this one in here, but it is one of the primo McMurray quotes about how just lustful they are. So I don't remember how the line goes, but it goes, Miss McMurray goes, please, Miss McMurphy, and Miss McMurray says, Miss McMurphy, you're a day early, baby. Mondays are for role play. And Bonnie goes, ew. And Miss McMurray says, Sundays are for yard sale. And then what do Wayne, Dan, and Daryl all say at the same time? James?
Sunday Stones.
There you go. There I end it. Who goes next?
Well, I'm going to do, because we had several last week. I had a couple of older films last week, so I'm going to do one that I saw just a couple years ago, and I've talked about on the show before, because the love story really worked for me, even though it was between 2 men. And all jokes aside, I get it. I got it's just a beautiful little love story, and it's Call Me by Your Name. It's Oliver and Elio.
Now, this is officially Joe's new Children of Men, because he keeps bringing it up.
Well, it was one that I didn't do last week because I wanted to go with some classics, but
and he chose a cannibal.
Yeah, Armie Hammer. I don't know the whole story there, but I still like the movie. I still actually like Armie Hammer in some things. I know
I do too.
Chad hates Timothy Chalamet. He would still rather have Armie Hammer at dinner than he would Timothy Chalamet.
And this is the one that I can't comment on because I cannot watch a guy in a movie. I hate him.
So basically, it's about a 17-year-old and a 24-year-old have kind of a summer fling, and the 17, but they both kind of fall for each other. And it's a different time. It's in the 60s, and this kid, his father is a professor, and he's renting a villa somewhere in France. As faculty are able to do in the summer, I'm told, James.
I mean, not me.
Well, real faculty with real money are able to rent villas. And the grad
faculty.
The grad student's helping his dad is Oliver, and they play by Armie Hammer. And they end up Armie is an attractive guy and women are after him, but he ends up and it kind of has a sad ending, because Armie Hammer's character Oliver ends up married. However, I don't know if I'm getting close to 72 and getting wistful in my old age or what. There's certain things. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I feel like I'm mellowing or dying inside, one or the other. But I love the idea. And there's other movies that I love about just summer flings, about romances, and they kind of end, but it's a beautiful memory that you keep with you for the rest of your days. And to me, that's kind of Call Me by Your Name. Even though I'm straight and don't understand what it is to have sex with a cannibal that I know of, I get the story, and I always think it's just quite lovely and beautiful. So is it a long-term relationship? No. But is it a beautiful little summer fling story? Yes, of course. James?
I'm going to go a different way. And it wasn't on my list. This was not on my list, but you made me think of it. And I was like, oh, that's what I need to talk about. There are relationships that are so believable because they seem real. They seem legitimate. And you're not going to be in a relationship long term without also being aggravated with the person.
Yeah.
Without pointing out their foibles and the little thing, and having snarky little comments that you've built up over years. And as you were talking about that one, it made me think of a couple that I enjoyed visiting for half an hour a week, quite frankly, on a sitcom. And it was not one that I thought about. But when you mentioned that one, I was like, oh, let's look at one that's long term. And this is also a relationship. But Freddie and Stewart. Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi in Vicious.
Oh, but it's a beautiful. It's long term and it's catty,
Yeah.
and they're of course
And
playing
there's
for the
but
nines.
but
But
but there's also so many moments that are really sincere. Like if you've never seen the show, watch it.
yes, by the way, yes, stop what you're doing and go out and see Vicious. If you're a fan of the
Vicious.
Golden Girls, especially, or
Oh
that
yeah.
type of humor, you will love Vicious.
Because Derek Jacobi's mother is still his character's mother is
Mhm.
still alive in the show, and she's very, very ancient, obviously, because they're both playing in their 70s. But there is an episode where she finally passes, and for all the cattiness, and as much as Ian McKellen's character hated her when he realizes he has to support
Mhm.
this person he's built a life with, and he is catty and makes harsh comments to. It's a really beautiful scene, right? It's kind of it harkens me back, and I didn't put them on my list, but it harkens me back to Archie and Edith from All in the Family.
Yeah.
Archie's a terrible person to live with, but he actually does, and he hides it well if you just saw it as an outsider. But if you watch the show long enough, you realize how protective he is in his own warped, weird way of Edith.
Well,
While
Edith
he's
is his soul. Edith is his
yeah,
heart. Edith
yeah,
is his conscience.
and
Conscience of the whole show.
if you see a couple of the episodes where he has to finally break down, like there's an episode that's always in my mind where he finally has to like he's admitting to her all the issues that he's got, and one of the things he says is where he was in the joined the military so young he didn't finish high school, and that cost him a promotion in his job, and it's one of those rare scenes where you realize he's admitting that he doesn't think he's good enough for her. And
Mhm.
yeah, he calls her dingbat, he calls her all, and that's very much the same type of relationship in Vicious.
Mhm.
Is yeah, I mean, I'll be terrible to this person, but the first person outside of us that is terrible we'll celebrate other people's failures, but we will not celebrate each other's.
Yes.
And I think there's such a reality to that. Like, my wife can say terrible things to me, or about me, and I accept that way better than if some random person on the sidewalk said it, because she knows.
I don't really think she says anything bad about you behind your back
She
or
doesn't
when we're
talk about me.
together. Chad, does she say anything to you when it's just you and her
all the time.
about James?
Oh yeah.
No, about you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, oh
What?
well,
All
that'd
I'm
be good.
asking.
That's fun. That's even funnier.
Hold on, let me
No,
let me
no,
do
you're
the
talking shit about when she's with you, Joe.
let me do the Rickles line real quick. Yeah, we both said we'd give up smoking except for after sex. I'm still on my first pack. She's up to about a carton and a half a day.
Yep.
Oh,
Is
anyway,
that a Rickles joke?
that's a Rickles joke.
Oh, I thought that was a Dangerfield joke.
Oh, it may be a Dangerfield joke. You're right. It is a Dangerfield joke. I'm sorry. There's a Rickles joke that is also about his wife, but it's not about Dangerfield's wife, obviously. But you're right. That is a Dangerfield joke.
Yeah,
You're
that's Dangerfield joke. All right, so I have been told to go next. I will go next. And
Should it be back to Chad?
Yeah, but he direct messaged me about something. I'll tell you later. It's about
I'm sorry.
your wife. It really isn't about your wife. It may be about your wife.
Well, I mean, if he needs a distraction.
Well, I know. At least she's being nice.
Yeah.
This one isn't. So I think I saved I got all the classics out of the way the first time because there was a couple I couldn't believe that you all didn't beat me to. And this one, I'm getting all the non-traditional relationships. And the next one I'm going to talk about is Elisa and basically the Gill Man in The Shape of Water.
Fair enough.
What do you all think? Because she really didn't talk, and he didn't really talk, and they somehow make it work enough to kill Michael. What's his face? Michael Shannon at the end of the movie. Now, there's some people who hate this movie and want to shit on Brandon Griffith for a second.
I don't understand why they hate it.
But because she's fucking a Gill Man, I guess. I don't know. He's
assuming
he's so against accepting other lifestyles.
You're assuming maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's because the Gill Man wouldn't give somebody like him the time of day. Let's not assume let's not blame the woman.
Oh, you know what?
Maybe his anger is at the Gill man for not giving people,
It's
not
probably
giving,
true.
people from Eastern Kentucky a shot. I don't know, Joe. I'm just saying, let's not assume.
That's
Let's
true.
not assume.
The Shape of Water is not a horror film. It won Best Picture. Del Toro finally got his Oscar, and I feel it's not his best film, but it is probably one of his most. Oddly enough, even though she hooks up with the Gill man, it's kind of one of the more audience friendly ones. What do you all think?
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
is a traditional love story. It's not true, but it's a love story. It's a love story. It's about this. But
Yeah.
I think the word I'm looking for is accessibility. It
Mhm.
is it's one of the more, I think it's more accessible than Crimson Peak.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
agree.
more
Yeah.
accessible than Chronos or The Devil's Backbone, which I love The Devil's Backbone. And I don't know what my favorite Del Toro film is. It's up there.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, it's Pan's Labyrinth, the best, but it's probably more because
Is it bad that you didn't know, but I knew?
No, I mean, but I love them all.
I love them all. Yeah,
I don't love
I
them
was
all.
picking
That's
yours
actually
for
a
you.
lie.
I can't pick one.
Yeah, I think Pan's Labyrinth probably is the best one, though. It probably is. It just lost to a really good German movie that year.
Mhm.
But damn, that movie's good. Anyway, so is Pan's Labyrinth. Do you know that came out the same year as Children of Men, Chad?
Oh God.
Thank you,
Yes.
Chad, for helping me out on that one. Anyway, but Pan's Labyrinth ends with a little girl dying.
Does it?
Pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, you can make assumptions, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends. How hard do you want to believe the fantasy world, right? I mean,
Well, it is not a complete downer because obviously her brain's shutting down and she's going into the
Yeah.
fantasy world, right?
Right.
So at least she has a moment of some sort of kind of joy at the end of it, where the dad from Chronos is the dad. So that I do appreciate that. But at least in the amphibian, the Gill man end up together.
Yeah.
And it has that great line from Michael Shannon talking about his fingers and what they're for. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking it's kind of an adult love story. And I don't mean adult as in there's a lot of
not like those films you normally watch.
not like the films I normally review on here. It's kind of a like it's not the same movie, but a movie like Tin Cup with Kevin Costner, which is another Kevin Costner film I like. What are you shaking your head about?
You'll see.
Tin Cup is a really good adult love story.
Yeah.
So go, Chad. What are you shaking your head about?
So my next pick is Bull Durham.
But Bull Durham is funnier, but I think I prefer Tin Cup, but I haven't seen either one of them in 15 years and should go back and see which one I'd like better now.
I can't say that I've seen Bull Durham recently, like in the past few years, and I still really love it. I love Tin Cup, but I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched either one of them in a long time. So
I need to go back. I need to go back and watch Tin Cup, but I honestly picked Bull Durham because the chemistry between Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon is some of the best, I think, in movie history.
Real quick for our listeners, if you don't know Bull Durham is what happened when they got some eggheads to rewrite Major League. Go ahead, Chad.
That is not true.
Actually, I was about to say, are you going to talk about Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon, who actually did have real chemistry and ended up together with children and then split up later?
But no, I feel like Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon had the real chemistry in that film.
Well, that's because the other two were actually fucking, and if I've learned anything from movie stars, that's a surefire way to kill the chemistry on screen. You all have heard that before, right?
Yeah.
But
don't fuck your co-star, it will kill the chemistry.
But that whole scene where Kevin Costner and them are laying in bed and he's painting her toenails.
It's been a long time, man.
Oh man, it's
and
just
shit that I quote from that movie is never about her and Kevin Costner. It's always like, you lollygagged at first base, you lollygagged at second base. Bunch of lollygaggers.
What's that make you?
Is that Trey Wilson?
Lollygaggers. Yeah, he's a great character actor. Just way too soon.
Yeah.
He may be one of the top 3 best things about Raising Arizona, and Raising Arizona's got a lot of shit going for it.
And we're getting off topic, but the other thing about Trey Wilson is he's the only one who actually ad-libbed, and the Coen brothers let him keep it.
You got Yodas and shit on him, Chad.
Yeah.
That's a talented guy.
Yeah. Anybody who can get the Coen brothers to go off script and keep it.
I think he died in the late 80s, early 90s. His career was really cut short.
Yeah. He
We need to do an
1989.
episode.
He died in 1989.
Yeah, his career was really cut short.
We probably need to do an episode about people whose career was cut short. Just about, what that we need to go back and rediscover short-lived.
Yeah,
I hate short-lived probably is not a great word, but we probably should do an episode about that.
Yeah. Fine with me. But yeah, no, Susan Sarandon and Kevin Costner, man. When it didn't make the top, it was between, I would almost put that in the top 3, but I thought Howard the Duck had more chemistry.
I can't debate that point.
I know I can't debate him because I haven't watched it.
So to our audience, I just laughed so hard I farted.
Thanks. They needed to know.
I'm pretty sure you could have said on that in more ways than one.
Well, he said on it, and then he did the one cheek sneak.
But no, this is my second. It was my second pick because I just, like I said, the chemistry between those two, and sometimes I think Kevin Costner can. Sometimes his acting ability is overrated in some things, but in this one, it's not.
If Kevin Costner is cast in the correct role, Kevin Costner is a fucking legend.
Yes, completely agree. So yeah, that's my pick, James.
Gee, what am I going to do now? I'm going to do this one because y'all are going to roll your eyes and say terrible things about me. So let's go ahead and get that over with. No, I argue this is one of the most romantic endings to a very complicated story, and it's different from the source material that it's based on. But I think the narrator and Marla in Fight Club, the ending of that film to me is weirdly romantic of the couple, and I think it works for me probably because of my own relationship, and I won't tell my entire story, but when my now wife and I first met, we hated.
She said she wanted to have your abortion.
No, she said my mother should have tried it though. No, that's a joke.
Did the original line? I haven't been fucked like that since grade school.
Oh my God, no, but the
Google it.
Well, no, I was about to say, and there's a lot of differences, and that's why I said the movie doesn't work so much in the book, because the book ends differently. The book ends with the narrator in a mental institution, as the work of Tyler Durden goes on outside, and people are waiting for his return.
I don't remember that at all, James. I thought the book and the movie were almost exactly the same, but I guess you're right. It's been a long time because I did read the book, and it's been a while, but. Okay, I forgot.
Yeah, and the relationship between them is different in the book because, quite frankly, she outs him to the group as being a faker. That doesn't happen in the movie. She takes away that from him, even though she's doing the same thing herself, and they cut that from the movie for good reason. But I think it feels like a real relationship that's lived in, because I think, again, my going theory is, and my wife and I have now been married 18 years. But when we first met each other, there was for the first really 3 years we knew each other, we didn't like each other. Matter of fact, I told the person who would later be the best man at my wedding, at our first meeting, if I never see that woman again, it'll be too soon.
It was neither Chad nor I.
But you weren't there when we met.
Party. You weren't there when we met, so I was
Listen,
trying to honor
you had a
date
with a lady, Chad.
Yeah,
lady.
You take that win that you got, and
I have more things I want to say, but I'm going to leave it alone.
But no, maybe that's why I feel this way. But I think there's something so iconic about that scene, that they've been at each other in some ways and together in some ways. But then when the world literally is collapsing around them, that they hold each other's hand. And I think there's something about that ending. So I think that's a couple that stuck with me.
But wasn't she really hesitant about that at the end? She's like, I don't know what this. because she's
Yeah,
thrilled that
In the
doesn't
movie,
quite.
absolutely, yeah.
She doesn't understand what this is. I mean, she was like, she's still baffled as to what he is or who he is.
yeah,
So
but
I'm like, is
but
this going to? It's kind of left a question of, wait, is this going to work?
yeah, and maybe it won't. Maybe it will be quote unquote short term as the financial world collapses and
Right.
everything. But I think there's something about that that seems very. I don't mean, I know this is your favorite genre of film, Chad. I'm not trying to attack you. That's a much more believable story, as farcical as it is and as social commentary as it is, than your Hallmark movies, Chad. I'm
Screw
not
you.
attacking you. I know you love Hallmark films, but I much more believe that story of two very
I can't
flawed.
wait to get off here and eat a bunch of Werther's originals and go to town.
It's going to
That's a
town
very.
mean. I don't want to know.
It's not. It doesn't mean what you think it means.
Oh,
well, that's
he's
unfortunate.
he's going to go to the
Oh,
Waldrug and
I
get him a
can't wait
quart
to
of
see
Coca-Cola.
I can't wait to see Candace Cameron Bure fall in love for the 30,000th time.
Is that
I
an
thought she
actual
left
person?
Hallmark. I thought she went
did
to
let
that.
off Hallmark to a more Christian channel.
Yeah,
Is that an
Good
actual
but
person?
woman.
but
Can't act for shit.
but no. I said that halfway just to get Chad going. But I do think that's true. I struggle with a lot of quote unquote
A
couple
company
films,
known for
romance
Christmas
films.
ornaments and a piece of cardboard with 3 sentences on should not be making movies.
Well, if you're ever in Kansas City, stop by and go to the museum there. It's kind of fun.
No.
It is. I'll stand by it. I don't give a damn.
Chad,
There'll
my
just
only
be more
problem-
for us to look at.
My only problem with that, Chad, is obviously they're more successful than I am at it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's tons of Hallmark movies. There ain't nothing. This here's a James Thomas joint. That's not happening.
Ugh.
I apologize to Spike Lee for using his terminology. But anyway, no, I find that a much more believable couple than a lot of these quote unquote true romance films where it's like, oh, he's incredibly good looking, she's incredibly good looking. One of them's from the city, one of them's from the country.
Oh,
Great.
God, yeah, I hate all of those.
I'm glad it worked out for him, but I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I have an easier time believing here's two incredibly screwed up people who arguably should both be in a mental institution. But in that moment, they have that relationship. They have that togetherness. I find that really compelling. So I think Marla and the narrator from Fight Club is a film couple that, quite frankly, I haven't rewatched the film in probably 5 years, but that last scene is burned into my memory.
Yeah, I
something
have with
about
them
that
holding
scene.
hands of the destruction.
Yeah.
It is. Of course, it's David Fincher, and he's a genius.
Yeah. But I know it's so that honestly, when I first pitched this idea of couples, it was one of the first ones that came to my head because they
It
are.
took him 2 episodes to get to the damn thing.
Well, y'all keep bringing up other like Vicious. I pulled out of a hat because when you start talking, I'm like, oh my god, if I do an episode about couples and we do 2 episodes and I don't mention Vicious, I'm going to be mad at myself.
I agree.
But
Chad,
narrator and Marla from Fight Club,
Chad.
it's definitely one I had to mention.
Chad.
So I gotta go with I'll have my honorable mentions. So I the fact that neither one of you have listed the best movie couple / TV couple of all time.
I think I know where you're going because it was on my list. I was hoping somebody else would do it, so I won't have to use one of my picks. Let's see if I'm right.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I
that's
think
what
I
I
know
was
what he's
kind
gonna
of
say,
that's
too.
kind of what I was hoping to. The fact that we have not mentioned Gomez and Morticia Adams.
Yeah, that's
yet.
what I thought you were
Yeah.
going to say. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
on the same page. The problem is there's one that I'm going to do for my third one who actually is one of my favorites, but it's on so many lists it pissed me off.
Gomez and Morticia is.
No, but that's not.
They are on
on
a lot.
It wasn't on a lot of the ones I looked at.
That's crazy.
Oh, really? It was on a
Not as
bunch
many
of
as Rose and what's his face from Titanic, but that's actually not the one
Ah.
I'm going to talk about next.
And there's another one that we haven't mentioned. I just don't
Hold
mention
on.
because I'm principled.
That's another one. All the pretty people and all their pretty problems.
Pretty
Yes.
problems. Well, he's a little popsicle-ish, but yeah.
Yeah, Gomez and Morticia Adams, I feel like, and the fact that I'm looking at my script and I spelled Adams wrong is very concerning.
You need the double D.
Yeah. I just don't think there's a better couple because they love each other unconditionally.
And there's actual sparks.
Yes, romance. And of course, when you look at all of them, you have to go with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston, in my opinion.
For the for the romance, I agree. I
Yeah,
will
for the
debate.
romance.
I think for parenting, the
Yeah.
original series, because I go back to it because I think about relationship as a couple parenting. I think it still holds up in the original series because they work so well as a couple. He'll get mad. Morticia will be like, "Oh, just go and talk." I mean, 60s sitcom, right? Go and talk
Mhm.
to them, and of course, there's all these men. But I think one of my favorite scenes, actually, I think it's from the first episode of the TV series, 60s TV series, is when Wednesday comes home from school. They finally let her go to public school instead of being privately tutored. And they, of course, tell her fairy tales at school. And she comes home because, the poor dragon gets killed by the prince.
Right.
And Gomez goes, I will pull her from the school. And Morticia says, no, no, no. You just need to go and talk to the principal. You need to. You're right. You're right. And again, though, I think it still shows that it's a lot of love, a lot of
Yeah.
respect.
And
I,
when
I think you're right, James. But but Chad's probably
But raw,
right.
raw sexual energy.
Raw
yeah,
sex.
when
and-
they are on the screen for those two films,
Yeah.
you
It's the movies.
you really do feel the passion and
Yeah.
the chemistry
he's-
between those two.
Yeah.
Even though Angelica plays it completely straight and Gomez is just off the Raul Julia is just off the wall.
She had to play it straight, or
Yeah.
she was on another planet.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, but there's so many great
It
scenes
works,
in that.
though.
There's so many great scenes, especially in both of them. But I love the lines in the first one are a little sharper between just them.
Yeah.
Last night you were like a tortured beast. You blah blah blah, and you frightened me. Do it again. It's just, and then later on when Morticia's talking about Gomez to Tully's wife,
Yeah.
blah 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 blah, and then he coughs up blood. He coughs up blood, not like he used to.
Too. It is quite frankly, unfortunately, what I think in my head romance is, and it aspired to, and doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's these two people who passionately care for one another and would fight anybody if they got in their way. Yeah, and
there's that entire line, right?
Yeah,
he's talking to Thing. I would die for her. I would kill for her. Either way, what bliss.
bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's and then I'll move on after this, but it's just one of the things that bothered me about the Wednesday episode. And again, you have two great actors in Luis Guzman and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I didn't feel like there was any chemistry between those two.
And they're underutilized. They're
and they
barely
are
in the show.
Yeah, and so I was just kind of like, it's
the only reason they brought them in there was to show up the dynamic between her and her mother. Otherwise, it wouldn't. There's no other reason.
Right. So that was kind of disappointing for the series, but
I kind of understood it because they were building off of this idea. And actually, I liked Luis Guzman cast as Gomez because it's the closest we've ever had in live action.
And looking like him.
Not acting like him.
No.
But I do love I love that dynamic a little bit because if and obviously they're all different universes, quote unquote, right? But I do love the dynamic that if you were raised by that couple, if you were raised by Raul Julia and Angelica Houston, Gomez and Morticia, and you weren't interested in that, you would have the sense of, yes, mother, I'm not you. Right? I don't want that. So I kind of was like, yeah, it worked for me. It was okay.
Yeah, it's not a terrible show. I'm with Chad. I'm not for sure that I'm with Chad, but I thought it was slightly overrated.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Basically, the show was overrated.
I'm to the point where anything that brings the Addams Family back to the screen, I enjoyed it with my kids. Animated movies.
I enjoyed the first one, not the second one.
The second one, I lost it. There's another. I can't say it on there. I'll tell you later.
All right. So anyway, so Joe.
All right, I had a really hard time with this because I really kind of want to talk about Ellie and Peter and It Happened One Night and Clark Gable, but we're not going to get into that. This is the one that's on a lot of lists, but unfortunately, it's one of my favorites too, and I do love the movie. and it is overly sentimental, but it's When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
It's the quintessential Meg Ryan romance. I know. I like Sleep. I don't ever watch them, but I like Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail. They were fine.
Which, yeah, that's one that was on my list, but Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan are like, that's when you think of, that's who comes up.
But the movie is When Harry Met
Sally. Yeah.
Directed by Rob Reiner.
And you didn't mention Joe versus the Volcano. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I apologize. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I watched a little bit of it during my. I didn't finish it for some reason.
It's so goofy.
I didn't finish it. I was trying to make it to the scene where he starts screaming about the lights in the office, and I never made it that far. I don't know why.
Damn, you didn't make it very far at all. That's only like 15, 20 minutes in.
Oh, shit. Well, maybe I did and don't remember. Hold on. Her sister shows up. Yeah, I did. All right. It doesn't matter. When Harry Met Sally, because Harry, I understand. Sally, actually, I still don't quite understand. I still like Harry better than Sally.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Am I wrong?
No.
He's more interesting.
Yeah.
She's just weird. I don't know. It's Billy Crystal, whom I've heard nothing but terrible stories about from several people that I've read about before, but that's beside the point. When Harry Met Sally, man, I don't know. I definitely rank it a lot higher than Jack and Rose from the Titanic, of actually building a couple that back to James's point.
I'm sorry, people. I never felt any kind of chemistry in Titanic at all. But of course I didn't. I'm not a big fan of Titanic. So
he's a big fan of icebergs, so that's why he went and saw it.
Yeah, basically. And he's like, well,
I couldn't wait to get. I wish I was there and just chipped off a piece of that snow cone and said, "Bye, y'all fuckers. Bye."
So, but back to what James is talking about, actual people. They're two flawed people. She's type A and he's laid back and likes different women. And then we watch them meet over the years at different intervals as they grow. And that's what's the most interesting part and the reason it works so well. There are two reasons for me. The reason the movie works so well is it's based in those acts of we watch two people become adults from children. I shouldn't say children, but basically college, after college, just idiots, to later in life, almost middle age, probably in their 30s, adults, right? And then the couples who tell the stories that break up in between the acts of the movie. It's just all so well done by Rob Reiner. Right about in between The Princess Bride and Misery, just when he was just knocking one fantastic movie after another, and then we would then get a few good men. It's just so well made. It's so well made.
Real quick, for those, I did this chat earlier, so just in case you haven't seen When Harry Met Sally, for those of you that are watching this, if you've ever seen Dharma and Greg in reruns, same thing. Same thing. One's type A, the other one's a free spirit.
All right.
Never seen an episode.
James.
Seen one, you seen them all.
Yeah.
It ran for a long time, though. I always forget how long Dharma and Greg ran.
James.
Oh, it's me.
Yeah, that's the reason we kept saying
James. I don't know. I'm torn because I've got a lot of on here, but I'm going to go ahead and go with one that again I think feels lived in and real to me, and it's in obviously sitcom. But honestly, Homer and Marge.
Yeah.
Homer and Marge. I mean,
it was on my list.
Yeah, Homer and Marge. I mean, they still have a sex life. We know that from several episodes.
Yep.
They do a lot of snuggling. At the same time,
Mr. Plow. That's my name. That name again is Mr. Plow.
But I think so much of that it feels very real because they do have the kids, they do have everything else, and for a sitcom that's ran more than 30 years, folks, it feels lived in. Like there are times when Homer, Marge should leave him. Marge should leave him. There's times, but it's not because he's intentionally dense or spiteful. He's just not aware of the world around him. And there's a couple episodes where Marge screws up.
Hold on. I didn't finish the quote from Mr. Plow because I had to look at our forecast calls for flurries of passion followed by extended periods of getting it on.
But I think that's a very real relationship. I mean, it's played for laughs. It's played for, he's always down at the bar. It's all this stuff. But it's a very real relationship in that ultimately Marge sees things in him that he quite frankly doesn't see in himself. And I think it goes both ways. Marge, does seem less a flawed character in most episodes, but there's enough episodes that say, hey, Marge wouldn't always be easy to live with either.
Right.
But both of them are dedicated to making that family work. And so that's when, and we talked about this on our worst father episodes, that Homer pops up on some bad dad list. He's not a bad dad. He's just not equipped to handle. He's got 3 very different kids.
That, and he's just a flawed person.
He's human. He's human. He's human. He's motivated more by his id than he is his super ego.
Right.
Yeah.
He just wants to eat pork chops, watch TV, and drink a beer.
Right.
And then, but when it comes down to it, he'll sacrifice that to make sure his family stays together. And Marge is the same way. Marge has been living with, all the issues and everything else, but push comes to shove, they pull it together for their family and for each other.
Yep.
And so I think it's hard to do a couples episode without talking about Marge and Homer because
same with Gomez and Morticia.
I agree.
Yeah, they're just long term, and even obviously you could go back and argue Fred and Wilma, but I think
no,
I think,
but it's just the honeymooners.
Yeah, I think Homer and Marge are much more developed. And part of me also thought about Lois and Peter, but it's because of Homer and Marge, right?
Yeah.
So, But anyway, so honorable mentions, gentlemen. I'll let you all do yours, and then I'll get to mine.
I have just a couple, but one that I want to say real quick, if you guys don't mind. Two, is that Wesley and Buttercup are on a lot of lists. And of course, that's another Rob Reiner movie. And it's one of my favorite movies. If you descend my basement, The Princess Bride, 1-sheet theatrical posters hanging there. And it's one of the few times, I don't often do this, but I pulled a favor so I could make sure that, holy shit, I forgot Wesley's real name in real life.
Carrie Always.
Why did I forget Carrie Always? He couldn't do a panel. He was at Huntington last year, but he wasn't actually going to I wasn't going to meet him. So I actually pulled a favor so somebody could pull me around back so I could meet him and he'd sign something for me. I got like 2 minutes. But I don't think of it. It's on a lot of lists, guys, but I don't think of it as one of those quintessential. There's so many other characters I love in that movie.
Yeah.
So their actual chemistry, they're not even together.
I don't even feel that. I don't even feel chemistry between the two.
I get it. It works for the movie because there's so much else. And the other one that's on a lot of lists, but I don't want to include it, which and I'm not arguing, but you guys are going to have is Bud and Fran from The Apartment. And it's Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. First of all, they don't even really get together till the last 2 minutes. And The Apartment is, if you've never seen it, it's go back to when we were talking about.
It's a great film.
It may be perfect. It's Billy Wilder's probably best film, and it may be perfect. It's back to what we were talking about in the previous episode. I made a comment, if you've never seen it, it's not an old movie. And it's the reason why we think you all should see The Thin Man, right? We said, if you've never watched The Thin Man, go watch that. And The Apartment is a perfect film, or almost perfect film.
It's like if you've never seen Ghoulies 3.
Yeah, totally. Although you really should see Ghoulies 2 first. That is a perfect sequel.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Anything with Royal Dano. That was the only thing The Apartment was missing.
Yep,
Royal Dano. But I don't think of it. That's on a lot of lists. But do either of you all think of them as a couple? Because Jack Lemmon's pining for her.
Yeah.
And she's pining for Fred McMurray, and he's married, and he's just shacking up with her in Jack Lemmon's apartment. That's what she's about, by the way.
She's codependent, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the movie's about, by the way. She's not a very strong person.
Right.
All right. Who's next?
James, you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead and go.
All right, I'll round out my top 10. This one I wanted to mention this one just because it is honestly, it's one of the true cases of a tragic relationship. Nicolas Cage and Elizabeth Shue in Leaving Las Vegas.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah.
good one. And
Yeah,
they actually, I think, have chemistry.
They have chemistry. They end up loving each other, but he is so set on. And if you haven't seen Leaving Las Vegas, it's Elizabeth Shue's a prostitute, and Nicolas Cage is this man who has come to Las Vegas to drink himself to death.
Yep.
And nothing's going to stop him from doing so. And
Spoiler alert, nothing does.
And even though they love each other, when somebody's got their mindset, it's going to happen regardless. It's one of those examples of a perfect film and a perfect love story that does not end well.
It's probably still Nick Cage's best performance. That Pig. Man, I want to say Mandy, but Mandy is a good performance, but I don't know if it's as good as Pig. And
no, it's not as good as Pig.
Just because Mandy is and that's nothing against Nick Cage's performance, and it's fantastic. It's just the reason to watch it is he's one of many things that makes me work.
Yeah.
It's
a movie that shouldn't work.
The first half of Mandy is Mandy.
Yeah,
it's Mandy. That's right. I don't even know that.
It's compelling.
He is the lead character, but he's not really.
Right.
Not that first half. It is her show.
It is her show. Yeah. So, to me, Chad, what do you think? Pig, because I think
Pig and Leaving Las Vegas, and I'm just trying to come up with.
There's a bunch of good Nick Cage.
Yeah, and I'm just
trying to shits on him isn't thinking it.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage is one of our favorite actors for a reason.
Yep.
Number 2, again, Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit.
Less so in the book.
Yeah, but that's another one of those and I know they're animated, but do they have chemistry, or is it?
I think they do.
Gag?
No, I think they have chemistry.
Or is it just a side gag?
It's not a side. It's a little bit of a side gag, but they really do love each other.
I was about to say, don't you say it's not a side gag?
It's a little bit of a side gag, but they really do love each other.
But
I haven't read the book, James. I have never read the book as much as I love the movie.
Well,
I've never read it.
It's very different because it's Who Censored Roger Rabbit.
Yeah,
it's a book, and she's the line, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way." No, she's bad. She is a loose woman because she had relationships with Maroon. She actually makes a comment that she would be with anyone as well as Roger. But obviously Disney wanted that change before they did that.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, I think it's still an interesting relationship because she's not exactly secret about it in the book either. Roger knows.
Right.
So it was an open relationship. They were the McMurrays of the animated world.
And then to round out my list, guys, Indiana Jones and Marion.
Yeah. Yeah, and because we finally have now all seen it.
Yeah.
And
spoilers.
Okay, if you've not seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, turn it off because I haven't
just skip a minute ahead.
Skip a minute. All right. Should he have stayed in the past or came back?
No, he shouldn't have. But I understood. I think the reason the movie works so well for me, and
you think he should have or shouldn't have?
No, he should not have. But I understood.
He should have come back, or he should have stayed?
He should have came back.
Yes. Okay.
The way it ended is the way. But I understood. And I'm not an archaeologist, but my work is to look at the history of education. And I'm working on a project right now where I can't tell you how much it would mean to me to find proof of what I'm looking for, right?
Right.
And that my stakes are not as high as his were. Mm-hmm. But to be able to say, here's proof. I've got an artifact. I've got something. I'm looking for one thing in particular. It's an artifact. And I have proof that it existed. I can prove that. But I guess it's my holy grail that I'm looking for, so to speak, on this project. And so when I was watching that movie, when he's sitting there and, it's against all logic that he would say. He knows it's against all logic that he should say, but there's something about that moment when.
But what is there to go back to?
That's the thing. He didn't have anything to go back to. He spent his whole life chasing history
And
because
there it is.
he was obsessed with it, but now there
Yeah.
it is in his eyesight. He's
And so
seen
no,
it happen.
it works on me in a way I didn't
No,
think
I
it
don't
would.
think you should go back.
See,
I disagree.
I think to me, it's when she punches him, it doesn't work for me and makes him go back. It doesn't work for me at all.
I
To me,
disagree.
it's fan service having Marion at the end.
Well, originally she had a much bigger role. I don't know if you've read interviews with her,
No.
but originally the original script, and they went back and shot an ending, and I wondered about the ending that they went back and reshot. I wonder if he stayed. I don't know that, but they did an interview with Karen Allen, and she said when she signed on, her role was quote unquote much more substantial. But that's when Spielberg was still going to direct.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not a terrible movie in any way. It's still probably better than Crystal Skull. I'm going to revisit it. I was in a bad place when I was watching it. However, the ending, there's some lulls. I understood now that I've watched it why it's not, people weren't going in droves. It's just not the movie I think that anybody expected. I liked the whole, and we're getting off topic anyway,
Yeah.
but I think he should have. Yeah, I don't know.
And
to me, it was, and then the grabbing the hat. It's cool, and I love the throwback of, well, where doesn't it hurt, and kissing. But
Yeah.
I didn't need
once
the
again,
hat.
it's fan service.
Yeah, well, I think though the part that got to me where it actually made me go, oh, in the theater, because I had rewatched them all before I went. And all the scrapes that he gets into where somebody dies, like, oh, the guy that was escorting him dies and all that stuff. And there's
The scene on the boat.
scene
Mhm.
on the boat where they're celebrating, and he goes, "My friend just died."
Yep.
And I actually went, yeah, he's at that age. He's not making new friends.
Yep.
There's nobody that's going to remember who he was as he wants to be remembered.
Yep.
And one of the people that did is gone.
That's a good scene.
Yeah.
But it's not Last Crusade. It's not Raiders
No,
of the
it's
Lost Ark.
no,
It doesn't
and that's
have
what I
any
mean.
of those. I mean, there's the train thing at the beginning, but
to
there's
me,
a couple of chasing. You guys see what I'm saying, right? It's
yeah,
just,
no, I understand what
I
you're
get
saying,
what
but
you're
to
saying,
me,
but
it
at the
shows
same
the
time,
evolution of the
yeah,
character, right?
I'm
Like,
with James.
this
It
is where
shows the
he is
evolution.
now.
You can't be
He
Indy in
can't
the
be that
past.
anymore.
yeah.
He can't,
Yeah.
and he's realizing his time's up.
Just like he said when he was climbing up the wall, I have, a metal plate in my leg, my back and all that. And he just can't do it.
I've been shot 10 times, once by your father.
Father. Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with James. I thought it was again, we need to get back on the couples, but yeah, I thought it was a perfect.
well, we should do an
continuation of the
episode
story.
about adventure films and start it with this conversation.
I really enjoyed that movie. I think I was with James too. I went in with no expectations.
No, I was hoping for a Crystal Skull, and I left. And by the way, I know if Glenn watches this, I don't know if you all have seen their comments on it, but he says it's number 5, and I'm like, no. And I went back and revisited Crystal Skull, and I enjoy it, but this one felt. I don't want to compare it to Mangold's other work, but this was the Logan for Indiana Jones. It's showing the wear and tear of that character. Is showing, and it worked for me so well. But anyway,
same here. All right. Anybody else have any honorable picks?
James? Oh yeah. I've got one I'm shocked you didn't mention, though it does end in a complicated way, Chad. I'm going to say it, and if you have anything to say about it, I'm going to let you say it, because how can you not mention the great, though troubled relationship as the series goes on of the Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend?
Oh my God, it didn't even make the list. I didn't even think about Monarch and
Mrs.
Venture Brothers, right?
Mrs. Doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Mrs. Girl. She becomes Dr. Mrs. the Monarch, right?
Yeah.
And then that gets complicated. But
oh my God, I didn't even think about them. Man, yeah, that's a good pick.
Because I was sitting there and I'm like, you want to talk about a quirky relationship, but again, these people that are stronger when they're together.
Yeah.
Because she's one of the only people that can really check him.
And she's so competent and he is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she actually, I mean, obviously they're not children, but the henchman, she's the one that empowers them and say, you're not a henchman anymore. And there's a scene where she cuts the one guy's ponytail and goes, you're beyond that now. You're your own villain. You don't have to be under him anymore.
I can't do that voice. I can't do that gravelly voice.
But yeah, that was a couple where I'm like, again, they're stronger together, but at the same time, they're also fully developed as individuals.
Yeah.
And
They
so,
shouldn't work, but they do.
yeah, Monarch and Dr. Girlfriend made my list. Similarly, Shrek and Fiona. I mean, literally couples made for each other. I know it's animated,
Yeah.
but in all fairness, it's, she doesn't realize that she is who she is until she sees him, and he doesn't realize he needs others till he meets her. There's something about that story I like. And the other one I wanted to mention, just because I think it's so fascinating in its own right, is Jack and Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was watching it, and I thought
That's a
she's
good
the
one.
only one that really cares about him, right? Everybody wants
Right.
what he can do. They want him to organize. They want him to plan. They want him.
Right.
But she has that entire song. What will become of my dear friend? Where
She's
will
the
this
only one who cares about him as a person. in the
person?
movie.
And he's the only one that really sees her as anybody but not a wallflower, but as as this person who has abilities. She has abilities that nobody else really sees except for him. And so, and I like the fact that, quite frankly, it's not like a lot of, and I know it's not pure Disney. It's just, but I think for a lot of Disney things, they have the couple get together early on and they go on an adventure, like Tangled, or and really they're still separated most of the movie till almost the very end when they finally come together. And I mean, she's the only one that will question him, because everybody else is like, no, Jack, that's a great idea. And she's like, no, we shouldn't be. And it takes a while before he responds to her. But again, he recognizes in her what nobody else does either. And I think that's a great couple in film that, doesn't always get the attention it deserves, as these are people that, part of being in a relationship, I think, Joe, you use this term and I use it some as well. There's different times where somebody's got to be the adult in that moment.
Absolutely.
And that's a movie that shows that Sally's not becoming more popular by calling out Jack and saying, this may not work. You should think through this better. But she does that because she actually cares about it. So I think that's a great couple. So those are my honorable mentions. I'm sure there's things we left off.
Joe, Nicolas Cage, Weatherman. That was the other one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Weatherman's good one.
Yeah.
That's a good
Sorry.
one. And that's a good one because I
was actually getting on IMDb to look it up, and it just hit me.
That's another movie where I understand the lead character.
Yep, same here.
Actually, I'll throw out Lord of War. It's bleak. It's bleak and it's not flawless.
Time, but I don't have a connection to it like I do Weatherman. Chad's right about that.
No, Weatherman's a much more human story. But Lord of War is one of those that if you watch it and you're willing to question some things, it really does make you go, yeah, how much of that sounds like it could really be valid? Like it really could happen-ish. So, yeah, anyway.
All right, guys.
So we've done best couples, right? Are we going to eventually go to worst couples?
I think in the next couple of weeks, you're going to get the worst, crappiest couples of all time. And my first one, here's a sneak peek. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but just to kind of give you a little, it's on the list on tons of lists of the best couples in cinema history. And I'm going to say, no, they're the shittiest.
Jaws and Roy Schneider.
No, Jaws and Roy Scheider. The movie's not about Jaws and Roy Scheider. That movie's about Jaws and Quint. We just keep on watching 10 minutes after the love story's over.
Yep.
Well, 5 minutes. All right. This has been
Monsters Dead. Movie's
over. Show's over. This has been Bonehead Weekly.
Get the hell out.
Ah.